everyone, welcome to the exciting conclusion of our Team Sealed versus series. Getting ready for GPDC, where we're going to be playing some Battle for Zendikar block Team Sealed. And we both built Team Sealed pools from an identical pool. And we actually came pretty close within each other. But now we're going to tell Todd's team why his decks are bad, basically.
That's not fair. I'm not even the captain. Why would you be telling me?
But you're the captain now.
No, we didn't play him.
You are the captain now.
Yeah, so we didn't play any captain's clause, either one of us. But yeah, you guys have a bonesaw in your deck, which is good.
that's bad.
It's good-ish. Jesus. Okay, this is getting aggressive. Okay,
Yeah,
so
now it's not. I can't even go get it.
both teams built a
Already made your
white-black
deck
deck.
better.
Both teams built a white-black deck, which I don't think is that crazy because of things like Drawn as Emissary and the Malakir Soothsayers and stuff like that. The deck's a little bit different. Like, you only have 17 land, you have shoulder to shoulder, things like Mighty Leap on Natural Endurance. You're kind of like a little bit more on the aggressive side.
Yeah, so I think, honestly, if we had more time to consider things, so a big point of contention when we built this deck is that we had the Stoneforge Acolytes and the Captain's Clause for forever.
Okay.
And finally, Todd and I were able to, I don't even know if we talked Tom out of it, we kind of just made it happen.
No, he was mad.
I got outvoted unhappily.
Yeah, so maybe if we had not been so aggressively slanted for so long in the deck construction process, we might have moved away from like these unnatural endurance, Mighty Leap, shoulder to shoulder, but I think both teams probably identified that the best way to build this black-white deck was kind of turtle up behind these allies, McKindy Aeronauts, Vampire Envoy, McKindy Patrol, cards like that, and try to just work into this powerful late game with the allies, Zooport, Chain Mage, and Makir Soothsayer.
Yeah, for example, like we had the Rising Miasma in the deck, which was like a pretty big draw to just being like a more controlling deck in general. Like, and I like the Mortuary Mire too when you have Drawn as Emissary, Malakir Soothsayer.
Makes sense.
And that's not a card I generally play, but it's like, if you're going to go long and you have, like, Serene Steward is, like, the one kind of real payoff card for actually gaining life, too. It's just, like, you want to find that combo, keep it together, and eventually win with that, probably.
It's also just a fine 18th land, if that's all right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not going to affect you too much. So, other than that, I mean, like, we had white and black cards. That's one of the strongest archetypes in the format. It's not that surprising that both teams built that deck. And then the rest of the cards were, like, a little shaky.
Yeah, I guess we'll talk about Tom's deck next, since that one is probably the most complex of all three of ours.
Yeah, so this is a base green deck. This is a deck I built last. It's a deck that can use all the cards that we had spare. Like the Wall of Surgeons didn't really have a great place. It could go in Major's deck, but whatever. Also, the red cards could go in the red deck. But as long as the cards are good, like any point in time in the game, they're good to splash. Like, you don't have to have, say, Devouring Flames on turn 3 or whatever. As long as you can assemble your splash color at some point in the game, the splash colors are going to be fine. And I did want to play a lot of colors because of Infuse the Elements, and it seemed really accessible with Loam Larvas and Lightspring Druid.
Yeah, and then you just end up with like a bunch of these gold cards that don't really fit into any of the decks too, and you can just kind of like shove them in there. So
yeah, we tried real hard to get Reflector Mage into the blue-red deck. I think this would have been the best deck for it, since it already wants to play some color signs for like Crumbling Vestige, and we did have the blue-white land, but overall, it just felt a little unnecessary, and I think it makes his deck a little bit better.
So there were a lot of green 2-drops to play. A lot of more 2/2s, like Orn Reef, the one that Invoker, and like Snapping Gnarla and stuff. Instead, I'm playing the 2-drops that survive the Kozilek's Return. Yeah, I'm playing the return is kind of like a theme of the deck, where a lot of my creatures survive it, like the 2/3s here, some 2/3s up here. Also, I'm playing the Eldrazi. It's kind of flashback to Cozy Return at some point in time. That's kind of the plan, to stall the board a little bit and try to just do bigger things later in the game.
Yeah, whereas with my deck, I was also playing the green deck, and it was just like, you know, we have a lot of green cards. They're not like great green cards outside of like Nissa's Judgment and the Embodiment, but I like the pairing of green with blue just because like you get to ramp to stuff like Kozilek's Pathfinder and just kind of like tempo them out and stuff. And that seemed like kind of a better plan than just going with like the Loam Larvas, and I don't know, it just feels like the card quality is like, you know, you have like some 8s and some 3s basically, you know, and I think the blue-green deck was a little bit better than this deck overall, but then I think the blue-red deck is better than the red-black deck we built. So it's like, I think overall our pools are fairly close in power level.
Well, they were the same power level, right? pool.
Well,
Well,
way
the
it
pool
built.
was, but the decks we built out of it, yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
What worries me about this deck is I think it's light on just ways to interact for a deck that isn't going to be putting on a lot of pressure and it doesn't have a lot of card advantage. So you're going to be vulnerable to just sort of drawing some of your mopey 2 and 3 drops too often in the mid to late game and die when your one big thing just gets Oblivion Strike or Isolation Zone, something like that. Whereas the pairing of blue with green gave you a bit more interaction with some of the Awaken spells, but those spells also let you just close the game a lot faster. So you operated much more like a mid-range deck rather than being a control deck because you didn't have the tools to go super late that reliably.
No, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. You know, I think we may have gotten a little bit blinded by Kozilek's return just because we wanted one deck to be able to play it, and I felt like most of the red-based decks in the format are going to have a lot of low-toughness creatures that just die because the 2 and 3 drops, like, none of them really have, except for, like, Eldrazi Aggressor, have a really high toughness. I mean, I could have changed the deck a bit since we are playing, like, Blinding Drones and stuff to maybe just try to stall the board early and just have it be, like, a volcanic fallout later in the game that can kill some annoying creatures from the opposing side.
Yeah, but it's tough though too because like that's not really what this deck wants to be doing. You know, like I don't think
the whole
you
deck would change.
Right, exactly. You don't really have the card pool to even like make that change. You don't have like the Maw of Kozilek's and stuff like that, like the big butt stuff. You're like trying to take advantage of Goblin Free Runner, and it's just like you can't really do that with Kozilek's return and also want to play like the Devastator and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Not a combo.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of the core of the red in this pool was the free runners, I think. So.
Yeah, I think I'll talk about my deck a little bit. One major
It's only
mistake.
39 cards.
Well, you threw away my bone saw.
I don't remember that.
Bone saw's ready, man. Bone saw's ready. Anyway, so this is we got some help coming. Ross, jerk. Anyway, so I think the major mistake we made in this deck is playing both Looming Spires without playing the Devouring Flames in this deck. I think that kind of combo is pretty important if we're going to be playing these Looming Spires because Devouring Flames is a drawback. You know, don't get me wrong. It's pretty hefty, especially on turn 3.
it can be. I mean, I've also had it happen where like I want to cast like that into Free Runner and I only have one mountain or whatever, and like then it's not a drawback. Like
yeah, I mean
stuff like that definitely
Or
happens.
only 4 lands, and it actually just like
yeah, I mean you actually gain a mana sometimes with it too,
Right.
which is pretty awesome. And I think you know, but we really just wanted to make sure Tom's deck had some ways to interact, and I gave him the Outnumber and the Devouring Flames just so he could do some cool stuff with like Scion Summoner and he has a couple of creatures that do have landfall.
Right.
Yeah, I like
so
those splits.
Yeah, so it was kind of tough figuring out the exact right splits for that. But as far as the rest of the deck, this is it kind of feels like my deck's going in too many directions, and that was a concern early on that we got to a point where we were just running out of time, so we were just like, whatever, we'll just cut some random stuff and hope that this is mostly correct.
Yeah.
But I really like the Bonesaw alongside the 2 Goblin Free Runner and the Dwarf Isle Avenger, and you know, the slip through spaces, even though we're going to be burning these early a lot of times just to like player surge creatures, it can be really good later in the game with stuff like Cinder Hellion or any of our big flyers if our opponent has like a small flyer that can jump block. I think it also allows me to play 17 lands instead of 18, which is I like playing 18 in this format a lot, especially when you have these Awaken spells.
Yeah, I agree with that. The only thing that kind of worries me is that you're trying to be sort of aggressive and you have 3 lands that ETB tapped and you're only playing 17. It's just like, I feel like a lot of times you're going to stumble on mana.
No, I definitely agree. And we do only have 4 lands that can cast Spatial Contortion. We didn't end up playing we have 2 copies of Waste in the pool.
Yep.
And I considered just like not playing red in this deck and just trying to be like a hard blue-based deck, but there weren't enough good creatures.
Yeah, and then like the black, devoid, colorless stuff was also just like not very powerful.
Yeah, it didn't seem great. I mean, what's the 2-mana 1/2 flyer that gets +1/+?
Sky Scour.
Yeah, Sky Scour just seemed very mediocre. And you know, there were a couple different ways we could have gone with the deck, and I do know that we're going to get punished pretty hard with stuff like Unknown Shores in our deck, just because we're going to have a turn where if this was just an island or a mountain, we'd just be way better off.
Yeah.
Curve-wise. It is kind of tempo-y, kind of aggressive, but we're going to have a lot of draws that are awkward because we do have Surge, and Surge is a very high variance mechanic.
I think you might have just been better off not playing the Looming Spires.
Yeah, I mean, that's also possible. I mean, I think a lot of that came from my inexperience in this format for the most part. You guys have all played a lot more than me in this format, and to me, this card just looks really good on paper, but coming to play tap's a huge drawback that I didn't take into
I mean,
consideration.
it is really good with the Menace guy, you know? Like,
yeah, for sure.
It's good in a lot of spots, but there are so many times where it just kind of screws you over. It's like the same thing with Mortuary Mire, where it's like, I would say 80% of the time you don't even use it. It's just a swamp that ETB's tapped.
Yep.
And you like contemplate putting it into play, but you might draw a couple extra lands, but you never do draw those lands, and then you end up screwing over your curve.
Yeah, with those kind of lands in this format, every time that I've ever had to like make a hard choice with it, you just have to play it.
Mm-hmm.
It just never works out where you like sandbag it and you draw more lands and it works out and you get a free turn or a free creature or an attack with a menace creature or something like that.
I do like Looming Spires a lot with Slabhammer, which is not in our pool, but is definitely something to consider. Like that's a thing that would make me want to actually play those lands.
Yeah, just being able to regrow it every turn seems sweet. The Mirror Pool was one card that I wasn't sure on. I think it's a very good card in general, but we do only have 3 ways to turn it on since we don't have things that make spawns in our deck, which is a concern. But being able to copy like any big guy, like the Guardian of Tazim, like that'll just change the game completely.
Yeah, it's game over.
Yeah. So that's all I got.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's time to take a look at our decks.
All right, so the way that we approached it with our black-white, I guess, ally deck, is that it was going to turtle up, be a little bit more controlling. We could play cards like Carrier Throw, but we had better uses for that in our black-red, I don't know its role deck.
It's the aggro deck.
Yeah, it's the aggro deck. And but what this deck was able to do is there's not many ways for Rising Miasma to like kill our own creatures, and the ones that it could kill already have a huge target on their head, and they're probably going to die anyway. And if they're not dying, we probably don't need to cast that spell. And
Everyone knows you have to kill Core Scythe Master on site.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you can just jam that in there 5/5 and then miasma it away. So,
but both of us realized quickly how lacking this deck was in actual combat interaction.
Sure.
So you played Mighty Leap, where we're playing Dazzling Reflection, and Dazzling Reflection is not that good of a card. But when we're lacking in life gain effects, when we do have a lot of triggers that want life gain, we can end up getting into these turtle situations where something big happens in combat, and we're able to blow them out. And because we're drawing so many cards, they're going to be under pressure to actually execute some kind of combat. And this is another way to generate life advantage, along with a combat trick. So it's probably going to play into our strategy much better than something, say, a Mighty Leap. And then we played the Searing Light just to be able to deal with something maybe that's unblockable or
or
just
some small flyer or something.
Yeah.
This was just an oversight. That was just a mistake.
It's not that good of a card usually, but in a deck like
like that
this, we
card.
I mean,
do need
for
it.
1 mana, it's huge. You know, like you just get so much value out of killing the creature that's killing you.
So I made a point during our video that what's up?
Combo.
Oh,
You have to cover both sides.
I made a point during our video that the deck should look pretty streamlined because there are so many packs. Like people are going to play most of their 2-drops and stuff, and I think that makes cards like Searing Light much better. Where like you might play against a draft deck that doesn't actually have a lot of targets for it, but like in this format, I think you are going to have a bunch of targets.
Well, it's
You're
also
gonna have
just,
to kill their Sky Scourers.
Yes,
or they're
exactly.
gonna kill you.
I mean, it's a card that always trades up too, which is pretty
Yes.
important.
Or doesn't trade at all, which is also good for most cards.
Yes, or it just lets your opponent play their Mighty Leap and blow you out.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I will note is that we had pathway arrows and a couple death touch creatures in our pool, and it was very possible to like get it into this deck, but we felt that this was our best deck and already had a bunch of like actual hard removal, so it didn't really need to try and assemble a combo to win the game. It was just like a good deck on its own. So then we gave Visara to Ross.
And to that note, we didn't even mention pathway arrows because we're not very smart.
No, I mean, I don't think that card is very good. We had it initially with all the equipment because we were trying to build like the Stoneforge Acolyte deck
Sure.
and stuff. But then we slowly just kind of pushed all of the devoid stuff out of our pool.
Sure.
And just kind of set it off to the side. And I do think that combo is very good. And if
It's
you know-
great. It is better than good. Like if you have a scrappy deck, especially like this one, like that is a way to win.
Yeah, and in decks like this, you actually that's all you want to do is just find a way to win. And if that is something of a consideration, is it possible that you want the Mortuary Mire in this deck? Just make sure you can regrow your Your Death Touch creatures?
I think I would rather just have it in the good deck because the good deck is still kind of leaning on certain creatures.
Sure.
And
That
just
deck is also trying to play a longer game.
this deck can also put the creature, like Mortuary Mire's creature, into play immediately off of an activation of Malakir Soothsayer,
Sure.
which could be extremely beneficial.
Yeah, this deck has unnatural endurance too, so you kind of have some ability to protect your creatures.
Sure.
I think this is a good time to note that their team did a much better job of leveraging some of the good black cards like Rising Miasma and Essence Depleter, which are 2 cards that we didn't have in either of our decks, so that's kind of an issue.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. Is just like at the end of it, if you're looking at the cards you're not playing, if you're like really sad that you're not playing a certain something, like maybe you did something wrong. Like
Right.
you should definitely look at that.
Yeah, I will say just hands down, I think you guys' decks are better than ours. We had a few oversights. I think your color combinations, like Major said, actually gets to pair some of the cards like Flare Drone, which we really want to play and can really find a home for it. So, yeah.
I mean, to be fair, we're not super happy about the home for Flare Drone. You know,
Hey, hey, speak for yourself.
Ross, you'll go 3 and 6 or whatever.
Well, it doesn't
You might-
matter.
you
Just
might-
gotta get the
go.
3 wins
You
in the
might
right
enjoy
round.
looking at your baby now, but let's go flash forward a couple days when we're all at GPDC having a good time, and you're shuffling up that piece of mess. Like you
go.
will not.
Lock it in. Let's play. I'm ready.
Tom, what do you think about this?
So first off, I think that anybody who has this pool will come across a black-white deck, and I think it just will be the best deck. It just has like Drown's Emissary, Ruinous Path, Isolation Zone, just super good cards. So Jerry went with so I went with a 4-color deck, 4-color green, but Jerry's also kind of 4-colorish because he's supporting the colorless cards, Mirror Pool, and has some colorless makers, Gravity Negator, which requires colorless. He uses Landfall a little bit better, pairing Garden Tazim with things like Natural Connections, pretty smart. You can tell that this is a deck that was built. I built my deck last, and Ross built his deck last too. So they have like more of this random pieces. But here he chooses to play Tightening Coils as a way to deal with flyers. Mostly, I guess, for curve concerns. My deck did have a lot of 3-drops in it when I played the Netcaster Spiders. Seems like he stuffed all the good colorless cards together. This is a good home for Blinding Drone and the Mirror Pool. It has more color sources than the red-blue deck that Todd and I built. But yeah, it looks kind of dirtly, yet powerful. I don't know what y'all think.
Well, I think the deck looks great.
I think the omission of Netcaster Spider is something we should talk about. I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, from like I said, my limited experience with the format, Netcaster Spider has just looked great.
So if they have flyers, the card is great, and then I'm more than happy to bring it in. But if they don't have flyers, it is really bad. And I think for the most part, you just want to play like generally good cards, not have like, you know, your deck kind of pre-boarded, basically. That's
Sure.
what it feels like to me. So if my deck were like super weak to flyers, that would be one thing, but I don't think that's necessarily true. Like I have 2 tappers, 2 coils.
And you
I
have some big flyers.
Yeah,
of your
Reflector
own,
Mage,
too.
big flyers of my own, some Awakened stuff. Like I have plenty of things to do, and like I even could have played like the second Gravity Negator as like a thing that could block flyers or whatever. But it was just like, no, I want my curve to be solid. I didn't want a glut of 3s. I thought Wall of Resurgence is just a better card in general, and that was about it.
Sure.
But yeah, without blue, you have 5 good anti-flyer blue cards. Some of them are flyers themselves, but yeah, I didn't have anything really. I didn't have any flying creatures in my deck except for Wall Resurgence. I need a little bit more defense against it. And also, I'm running like.
Wall Resurgence
It doesn't
not fly.
fly.
Oh, it doesn't? Look like it does.
It's just really tall. That's it.
Oh well, off it. Yeah, I had a Kozilek's Return thing going on too. He doesn't have that, so he has some.
Yeah, and this deck could have played Kozilek's Return too. That was another thing that we were talking about where, like, if I wanted to, I could certainly play maybe the Devastator and the Return, but it just didn't really feel necessary.
This is definitely where we were going to put the return in sideboarding.
Yes,
Because
yeah,
there's no
yeah.
way this
We
deck's
were going
ever
to have it
gonna
here for sideboarding, but then it was like, oh, well, I could just play the Reflector Mage instead, and I think, like, this is just a better splash than playing Return and a Devastator that I don't really want in my deck anyway.
No, I definitely agree. The Scion Summoners, you know, if you want to be playing stuff like Stalking Drone, Snapping Gnarlid, and if you play Kozilek's Return, like it just makes it so those cards are significantly worse. Like you have to main phase them, or you have to play around them yourself by like pumping your guy before you cast it.
So my deck might have had a couple more Haymakers. Did have the ability to use Infuse Elements all the way. Although you do have Unknown Shores, which can make an off color.
And the Druid.
Right? Yep,
So,
true.
a couple ways to backdoor.
I feel like this is the best home for the colorless cards. Y'all found the best home for it. You have enough colorless lands and enough colorless things to do with them. Definitely better than we had. We had just 4 like color things in the mirror pool, but you can use mirror pool, activate it a lot, and you do have reasonable sized creatures, and even like reasonable spells to copy too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mirror pool I think would be a lot of fun in this deck.
Yep, I agree. You got over there.
All right, cool. Let's talk about this really, really terrible black-red deck.
It's just a masterpiece. There are just no words. It's perfect.
Okay.
We
well, there's
basically
no
built
words.
the
We're
other
done.
decks around this, so this could exist.
Ross Merriam saying there are no words.
There's no
Are
words.
you
I guess we're
okay?
done.
He has all the words.
Yeah.
But then he proceeded to
He has
say
all the
several
best
words.
words. Ross has the best words.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the main draw for me for this deck is Flare Drone. That card just seems very powerful in the format. First strike on such a big body. It's very similar. What's the white creature that does similar?
The Scythe Master.
Yeah, the Scythe Master. It's pretty similar to Flare Drone, except it only works when it's attacking. Flare Drone being able to play defense on 3 against any sort of like 2/3/3 draw from your opponent or whatever, it just seems great. And the ability to just constantly put your opponent's life total under pressure with its triggered ability seems awesome as well.
Yeah, I think Flare Drone and Essence Depleter are 2 of the main draws here to being a devoid aggro deck. Depleter is just really great.
Yeah, I love that card, and I think this deck does a pretty good job of being the deck that soaks up all the scraps. You know, you have most of the more aggressive cards from the black, whereas that deck has way more of the controlling cards, which I like. Hissing Miasma over there makes a lot of sense, obviously, because we have so many creatures with low toughness. So you guys, I think, did a really good job of separating the color into 2 different decks, which I think is generally going to be the splitting point for Team Sealed, is just finding the one color that can really split off from the rest.
And it's possible that splitting off at the devoid mechanic is where most of the splits happen, which would mean that black splits pretty easily in a lot of different pools.
Yeah, for sure.
You also just made a cohesive deck with only like 6 premium cards, which is pretty
you
impressive.
mean 23, right?
Well, I mean,
Count again.
I think it's like 4 cards.
Complete hyperbole aside.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, what do we want to pair the green with? And can we use these devoid cards? And can we make like playable decks out of these? And I do think we did a pretty good job of that. We found a good home for Pathway Arrows. And this deck is like pretty scrappy and has a lot of ways to win. Like Swarm Surge is not like a great card, right? It's not a premium card. But in this deck, it is basically overrun. You know, like you are getting max value out of all of these like kind of bad cards, which I think is great.
No, for sure.
Curve out, keep them off balance within endurance, and you got a decent number of flyers. You got the embodiment to deal some damage late. These guys both give you some reach. You got reach from Flare Drone and Depleter. You have the Swarm Surge. So that this deck can get really scrappy and
You can have all those exact cards in your opening hand after
objectively better
mulligan.
Yeah, exactly. Well, to that end, Molten Nursery was the last card we cut.
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean, I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. Every card in this deck has a bit of synergy with the other ones, and it does look much better like laid out like this than it would look on paper, for example. Like a lot of the cards are like 4s, but when combined with all the other 4s, they all move up to
That's
like
on
a
a
5 or
5-point
6.
scale, right?
Yeah. The question is how well it looks like when it's playing out in game. You know, just like Sky Scour is just not a very powerful card.
Yeah, you just have like Sky Scour, removal spell, Swarm Surge, and you're just like,
guess I keep.
And we rip the Eldrazi Aggressor, and it's all together again.
Yep.
yeah. So yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I love Unnatural Endurance. I loved Boon of Erebos when it was in Limited, and this is just like a strict upgrade. And I think it goes really well with a lot of these, you know, small 2-drop creatures. You know, your opponent's always going to be trying to play defense against you in this deck, and having something that can counter a removal spell or just like trade 1 mana for their bigger guy is awesome.
Yeah. Anytime you're playing a deck like this and you get to start playing like 2 spells on a turn ahead of your opponent, like that's when you start getting ahead. And sure, they're probably going to stabilize eventually, and then you just have to find Barrage Tyrant or Swarm Surge or whatever, some way to kill them.
I do have a question. What about Warden of Geometries? That seems like kind of the sore thumb in this deck.
It's not great, but you just need more creatures, I think. And it kind of like turbos into Pathfinder. It's another source of colorless mana. Like it's I'm not gonna like, you know, defend a lot of stuff in this deck, right? But it's just like it's just kind of there. It could be like the Undo 4/3, give your guys trample, but there were not a lot of red sources in this deck.
That it did look like that before, but I tried to get as many
Brad,
aggressors out. Oh, I hate aggressor.
Yeah, it's not good.
I also think it's interesting that
It's not
both
aggressive.
teams didn't play Reality Hemorrhage, which most people might assume is like a pretty good card. That's something we want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean it's a reasonable card. It's just 2 mana shock, doesn't kill a lot of things of importance. So I don't know. You end up with better cards in your deck, and certainly if you're playing this deck and they have like 2 Ondu War Clerics or whatever, like you're gonna bring that card in certainly.
Yeah.
I do think that this format just has an astoundingly high number of 3 toughness creatures compared to a lot of other limited formats, and that was the first thing when I drafted for the first time. I actually took Reality Hemorrhage like pretty highly.
I remember that.
I was like, why are these coming around so late? It's just like a removal spell, right? It's got to be good. And then every game, I'm just having to like hope that they block my first strike creature, so I get to kill a creature with it. And it did not kill a whole lot of stuff, but I think there are a reasonable number of 2-drop creatures that are very important, and being able to kill them, such as the Ondu War Cleric, which we don't have in our pool, that is the best white common, and being able to deal with that, I think it's
the best common.
I think it's the best common period.
Sure.
In both sets?
Yeah, so for Hemorrhage specifically, it's like, yeah, it's a removal spell, right? It kills a thing. But most of the time, because so many creatures have like more toughness than they probably should, it's easier to just like brick wall their little creatures rather than having to waste an actual spell to kill them.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And since we do have a decent number of flyers and stuff too, I don't feel like we needed to kill like the low toughness flyers. Not that there are even that many, you know.
And this deck being a Storm Surge deck and like trying to be scrappy and be this aggressive deck, you just don't have that many spots for spells. And Reality Hemorrhage, like, yeah, it's a removal spell, but it's not a premium removal spell. And
it's not going to get rid of something that's like brick walling you, you know.
Whereas this card actually can pretty easily do that.
Yep. Agreed.
It's just never going to trade up. Like, whereas Unnatural Endurance lets you play 2 spells in a turn, triggers your avoid stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. No, I agree. Outnumber is a card that I kept wanting to try to get into various red decks. I may be overvaluing it in general.
It's very good. I mean, you're definitely not wrong. Like, it would be at home in this deck, I think. But we just have, like, Salvo, Devour and Flame, Swarm Surge. I think, like, maybe Outnumber instead of Contortion, but Contortion is colorless, so...
I think there is a potential for there to be a green-red deck. That was something that I actually killed Brad in a versus video the other day by doing spatial contortion on my Thought-Knot Seer.
Yeah.
But I think cards like Outnumber, they go really well alongside, anything that can make tokens like Silent Summoner or Eldrazi Sky Spawner, for example. And if you have a pool that has those in it, I think maybe trying to pair those together is good, because being a 1-mana removal spell that can kill just about anything, if you have a bunch of these token generators, just feels like such a huge swing in the format.
Yeah, I agree, and that's definitely one of the things where it's like we look at the cards we're not playing, and it's like, man, like maybe it's possible this deck should have like K-Return and Outnumber instead of the white cards, but I do think the white cards are good too.
So yeah, Tom just played all of them, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't play colorless. I didn't have any need for colorless man, Blinding Drone, and Mirror Pool or anything. I'm just kind of straight 4 colors.
Yeah.
It's definitely ended up being a better Blinding Drone deck.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I mean, Blinding Drone are cards that tap creatures in general are much better when your deck has these like high end cards that you can leverage being able to attack for large chunks like 4 and 5 damage, because you can just mess it up so they can never double block.
Yeah, as opposed to just like a Blinding Drone in a deck like this, where it's just like you have to tap like their creature to like get in for 3 points or whatever, 2 points. It's like not very impressive.
Using your mana every turn to chip shot your opponent's kind of pretty bad, but.
Well, guys,
Looks great.
Well, I'm just looking for the box that this all came in, because I do feel like we won, therefore get the Stoneforge Mystics.
Oh, I took them already.
You already got
Yeah,
them?
I have them.
All right, well.
They're in my deck box. Sorry,
all
guys.
right, Ross got the premium. He needed it more than us. I
Yeah.
don't know if you guys heard that, but...
I got the premium too.
Yeah.
We got to give it to the Select guys so they can run it up on the free side or the.
Yeah, they can read our content.
Yeah, so I can now read your content.
Yeah.
So
Ooh.
everything got distributed within the pool how it was supposed to.
But yeah,
The
so
free market at work.
that was our attempt to build the same deck twice, or the same pool twice, and I learned something from this actually going into GPTC this weekend. Like, this actually helped me out significantly.
Not to fear this team at all.
Ooh, wow.
Jeez.
I really hope I play into it. I hope that this is the exact CD configuration, and I'm going to slow roll you at every point possible. Like
But he's gonna throw your bones off the table.
Yeah, and then I'm going to call Judge and get him DQ'd.
Ooh, tough man there.
All right. Well, apparently, team versus videos create a lot of animosity.
Yeah.
Oh man, Ross just being a jerk over here.
just ruining friendships.
Yeah, but
I'm just chilling.
Yeah, me and Tom cool.
but yeah, so this weekend is Grand Prix DC. And Star City Games is hosting it. And as you've seen in the other videos, if you watch them, this is going to be an awesome build where we don't have to worry about actually like writing down our entire pool, and then the deck list when we submit them, it just has only the cards that are in our pool, which I think is just awesome. So hopefully a lot of you watching these videos are coming to DC. If you're not, grab 2 friends and make a last-minute trip. It's not that far from where you live. Just Google Maps it. It's fine.
Brad, you're right. It's only like 4 hours from where I live.
Yeah,
you're so smart.
Exactly, right? It's very easy. If it's too far,
Zimbabwe, not too far.
If it's too far, they have flying, cars and planes. And...
well, now you're just lying to people about flying cars.
Boats.
There's boats. Yeah. There's probably trains.
Probably.
Greyhounds.
You can find a way.
You can find a way to get to DC this weekend for...
no matter how many people are in the room, Brad is just always going to drone on for just minutes at the end of a versus video. It just doesn't matter.
All right, that's all I got.
Thank God.
Join us this weekend. Like, physically, just show up to Grand Prix DC.
Yeah,
it'll be a fun weekend.
Just Nike.
Just
all
Nike.
Right, bye.
See you guys this weekend.